All right, welcome to Real Estate Success. I'm your host, Mena Badros, here today with Nick DeVito. Nick, great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mina. It's a privilege and an honor.
Thank you so much. Hey, Nick, before we dive into business, I want people to get to know who you are as a person. So, without mentioning any professional accomplishments, can you tell people who Nick is?
Sure, sure. I grew up, with dyslexia and maybe some backgrounds that made me kind of be the funny guy in school or class because I wanted the attention, but I didn't want it on certain things. And I grew up with two good, loving parents and a good home and three siblings and things like that. And I learned early on that work ethic. There's two things people can't take away from you in this world, Mina. One is your education, and the second one is your work ethic. And I just those family values were, you know, born upon me almost 50 years ago because I'm on next week I'll be 50, and
Awesome.
those things are just great, and it means so much to me. And now I got a broader family, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you mentioned, two things: education and work ethic. And I'd love to. I mean, why don't we start there? How does that kind of show itself in your real estate career?
Absolutely. Well, education. My parents. I went to public school. Well, first I went to a private school because of my dyslexia, and I had to overcome that. And then the schools, my private school said, Nick, you'll probably be able to get to a public school, but that's it. You're never going to go on to an elite school. And I had my oldest brother, and he was at an elite school called University School, which is all boys, K through 12, and it's for gifted children, people who really, SATs are off the charts and things like that. Well, I assure you, the only thing that was off the charts for me was my athletic performance. I played three sports, but I really wanted to go to the school, so I worked really hard, and I finally did get in, and we both graduated from the same high school, and that means a lot. And that work ethic, I just didn't take no for an answer. It didn't matter what it was, what the obstacle was. I just kept moving forward, and slow and steady always won the race. I certainly wasn't the first guy out of the gate or anything like that, but I really that work ethic that my parents instilled, my mom and dad, even to this day rings true. That's what you can't take away. You can't take away education, and you can't take away work ethic. They're very important.
I love that. And, two very critical in the world of real estate. Why did you get into real estate?
It's funny. I was running a huge construction company. And when I say huge, a $2.5 billion REIT in Ohio.
Wow.
REIT is a real estate investment trust, in case someone doesn't know, but headquartered here in Cleveland. And I would travel around all over, and that was great. And I enjoyed. This is, of course, long before COVID, and I enjoyed doing it. I worked there about 15 years, and things were going great. And they pay a lot of money to do a lot of traveling. Now, I did have at the time I was married and had two little kids. And so I didn't get to see my kids as much as I wanted to just because of the travel during the week. I was gone usually Monday through Friday. And then I unfortunately got a divorce. And then I started dating someone, still had the same job. And she is the one, my current wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, said, you're a good, pretty good looking guy. You're this and that. You're smart. Why don't you become a realtor? They dress nice. They look good. They have fancy cars. I think you'd be great at it. And I'm like, what? I don't know any realtor. I mean, I really didn't know anyone by the time I was only 30 years old. But she knew more about me than I did at that time. And she was 100% correct, which is why she's my wife today. And we have a 15, almost 16-year-old. And it's just been a wonderful thing. It was almost like a bet. She said, listen, you need to stop getting on these airplanes because I want to spend more time with you and get married and have children. And by the way, again, I was divorced with two little kids. That was the last thing on my mind. And so I had to change job careers and do everything. So I literally, because of my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Cindy at the time, I got into real estate. And that was almost 20 years ago, 2005. So 19 years and counting it. Next year will be my 20th year anniversary in real estate. It's hard to believe. I know I look very young, Mina.
That's awesome. So I know you grew a lot, right, as a person, as a professional in this years. But can you look back 20 years ago when you were starting off real estate? How was it starting out? What did you enjoy? What were some of the challenges you faced?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I will never forget my first day on the job. I was 30 years old, and I met a nice lady who had been in the industry now probably 40 or 50 years. Let's just say she wasn't 30. She was probably closer to 70 or 80. And she looked at me. Now, here I am, big-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to start my real estate career and conquer the world, of course. And she looked at me and she said, "Honey, why do you want to get into real estate?" And I probably should have thought about this more, but my knee jerk reaction was, because I said, well, because I want to compete with people like you. I mean, the world is a competition. We're always competing and things like that. There's only one first place. There's not 10. And so it was probably the wrong answer to the lady. And she's like, well, that was a little, and I said, I don't mean that in any negative way, but I really love to compete and I want to sell houses and represent my clients and things like that. And long story short, she was a great lady and helped mentor me then into real estate in my first job. And I did things a little differently. Mena, when I started my real estate career, I started at a company called Remax. Now, everyone in the world knows Remax today, but most people don't start at a Remax. They start at a smaller boutique or even a larger firm, but just something that's going to give them a lot more education. Well, I'll never forget that on that same day that I met with that lady that asked me why I wanted to get into real estate, my two brokers sat me down and said, well, how are you going to get business? And I said, well, I have no idea. I thought you were going to give me the business. And they kind of both chuckled and said, well, it doesn't happen like that, Nick. You need to go get your own business at Remax. I said, okay, so what should I do? And they said, here's a phone book. Now remember, now you younger guys and girls won't know what a phone book is, but that's something that's about 2,000 pages and it has everyone's name and number. And it would say Nick DeVito and my street address and my phone number, believe it or not, when we had home phones, which I don't know if anyone still has. I do not. Probably a good thing. And I just laughed and I said, you want me to call people in the phone book I don't know and just tell them I'm going to sell their house or a realtor? And again, this is 2005, almost 20 years ago now. And it was right before our great recession of 2006, 7, 8, 9. You know how that went. And I will tell you, it was a learning experience. So I didn't call anyone in the phone book. I called my friends and family and said, hey, Mena, it's Nick DeVito. I don't know if you heard this or not, but I got my real estate license. Do you know anyone looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the next, month? And they're like, Nick, who buys in a month? I didn't know. That was my script. I didn't even know what scripts were. Or no one was teaching me anything. I was just kind of winging it. But it really, it turned out to be pretty good. I had a lot of success early on. Sold a lot of houses. Worked at Remax for 10 years. So it was a great learning curve. And I don't forget those days. The first house I ever sold was in a city I probably wouldn't go to today, in Cleveland, in East Cleveland. If you guys know anything about Ohio, it's definitely in the inner parts of the city. And I didn't have a choice. It was my only client. So I went there and sold her a duplex. And that lady still today, 20 years later, refers me business. It's really a great story.
That's awesome. And I want to go through kind of from there and what you did after those first 10 years. But I have a few kind of questions on what you said. So, it sounds like, and a lot of agents do this, they get in the business, nobody really shows them how to do it, right? They kind of just figure it out. And with that, sometimes comes a sense of uncertainty for some folks. Sure. For some folks, they feel like they need to learn everything and know everything before they go out there and make a mistake, right? But you just you went at it, you figured it out, and it grew from there, right? Very similar to mine. So what would you say to that, right? To those who are hesitant or feel like they need to know more before they take action?
You're never going to know enough. And I'm that kind of person. I'm a high D. I just kind of wing things or shoot from the hip. Ask my wife or kids. They'll just tell you I just do stuff and ask for forgiveness later. And it kind of comes back to a funny story of mine. My first door knocking experience. You guys remember when people used to put for sale by owner signs? They still do it a little bit. Well, I'll tell you, my broker said, go out and knock on some for sale by owners and, get the business and get the listing. And I said, well, how do you do that? And what do I say? And they said, just go be you. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Again, this was a 30-year-old Nick, not the almost 50-year-old Nick you see today. And so I put on my coat and tie and get all dudded up and go there and knock on this guy's door. And I hear a dog barking and I know it's a German Shepherd. You just know that bark. And it was scary. And it was a small house. And I was like, said a for sale by owner. And I parked my car in front. And I knocked on the door and the guy opened the door and said, what are you doing? And again, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. And he came and he wasn't wearing all of his clothes. He was just kind of wearing his shorts. And I said, oh, I'm Nick DeVito. I'm here to list and sell your home. And he's like, listen to me very carefully. I work the night shift. You hear my dog barking. Don't ever knock on this door again, or it will be a problem. And, again, I'm 30 years old. This guy was a little bit older than me at the time, and very, military cut, haircut and short and everything. And I didn't know what he did for a living. And I said, I'm very sorry, sir. I won't bother you. Turned around, walked away. I got halfway to my car, halfway down his driveway. And I said, no, it's not going to go out I'm not going to go out like this. And so I went around to the side door, not the front door that I knocked out first. I went around to the side door and I knocked on the door. And now, not only is the dog barking, but he comes to the door with the dog and a gun. And I'm like, oh boy. And he said, are you hard of hearing, or did you not understand what I said? You just knocked on the front door. I said, sir, I apologize. I just wanted to let you know there's a real jerk answering your front door. And if it was me, I'd want to know that if I was the homeowner. Well, thank God he started to laugh and said, hey, come on in and sit down. I'll put the dog away. He was an off-duty. He worked a second or third shift. I don't remember, probably second. And he had just come off the night shift. He probably got 3 hours of sleep. And here I am knocking on his door, trying to sell his home. Well, long story short, I did list and sell that home. And it was a great relationship. Again, another client that I've had now for 20 plus years. But, I could have, as I could have just walked away and said, no, this guy doesn't want to list. He doesn't want me. What do I know? I'm a brand new. That's not my attitude. I said, I'm not giving up unless I sit down and talk with this guy and tell him I can really help you. And I did. And it's a great story. It could have gone another way, I guess. If he shot me, that would have been rough. But thank heavens he did not. That's
a great example, a great story. What would you say is your kind of one thing that you took away that you kept doing, in your business moving forward?
I think consistency. I think in this business, if you're not consistent in what you do, if you don't have a schedule, I used to go to these seminars and listen to these guys and girls speak, and they also always talked about their schedules, always talked about this, always talked about their morning routines, things that were really important to them. And, in the beginning of my business, I didn't have a morning routine. I didn't have a schedule. I mean, now you'll laugh. I probably have four electronic calendars to keep me to know if I'm on a Zoom call or a podcast or whatever. As you know, our schedules get worse before they get better. But it's something like that's so important. Your consistency in your morning routine, what you do. If in the beginning, I was prospecting 4 hours a day. People laugh. I was prospecting 4 hours a day 20 years ago. And I was calling every single friend I knew. I made a spreadsheet. I called everyone. Hey, Mena, do you know who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the next 10 to 15 business days? And they're like, 10 to 15 business days. I said, well, listen, I know you're maybe not looking to buy or sell. And then I'd end the conversation where, are you still at 123 Main Street? I just wanted to make sure I had all their information, wrote down, married with kids. By the way, what do you do? Oh, you're a barber? Great. You know what? I need a haircut. Let me come in the barbershop, sit down, talk with you, whatever it was. And I always tried to help other people before worrying about if I was going to get a sale. I always tried to give back and give. And I think that goes a long way because they knew I was genuine about that. And my consistency was try to help others. And it's been a blessing over the last 20 years in this industry.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's something very important to me as well. Probably more important than a lot of things, just helping others. 2 times already, you mentioned that clients that were there for 20 years, right? And they kept giving you referrals. Was there anything that you did specific as far as follow up or nurture to continue those relationships and get those referrals coming?
Sure. Well, 20 years ago, you guys remember, the internet was just coming out and things were just happening. I mean, it wasn't like it is today with Facebook and all this. Is before Facebook, before LinkedIn, before Twitter or tweeting or whatever it's called. I don't know. I don't do it. I just do Facebook and LinkedIn. But I will tell you, my thing was to always follow. I love to stop by people's house, and maybe this isn't always the greatest plan, but unannounced. If I was in the neighborhood or showing something, if I was showing houses, I would just stop by. I never gave gifts or anything. I would just come by and ask how their family was doing, ask how their kids were doing. And sure enough, that would lead to someone. They would be going to church with someone or whatever it was. And they'd be like, oh, I talked to someone at work and they need a house, or they're looking for a house, or they're looking to sell a house to be near grandkids. I always tried to take notes. I said, do you mind if I just take notes and write this down? Do you mind giving me their name and number? And people would do it. And that kind of referral business, I mean, that personal thing, that touch, I still do it today, even 20 years later. I will stop by a client's house if I'm out showing properties, which isn't great, always unannounced. Now I'll shoot a text and say, hey, are you home? And usually they're always home. And I just stop by just to sit for 5-10 minutes, have a glass of water with them and just say, how are things going? How are the kids doing? I can't believe it's been in this house 3 to 5 years. And that kind of personal approach. I mean, you can email, you can market, you can do all those things and Facebook. But to me, it's like it was always being belly to belly. It's always like that personal approach, so I could see someone's inflection or their tone of voice or what's going on. And sometimes I'd stop by and it wasn't great. They were going through a family crisis or went through a divorce or went through a parent dying or something. And things aren't always great in people's lives, but they knew that I genuinely cared, and that meant a lot to me. And that's just kind of the person I am. And I'm not going to change now, that's for sure. But that really, they knew I wouldn't have stopped by if I didn't care. I wouldn't have texted or called. And that staying in touch with them. And I don't do a good enough job as I used to. Now I teach it more to my agents than anything else. But I still try. I do enjoy it. I love seeing people face to face, giving them a handshake or giving them a hug if they let me, and just say, hey, it's going to be all right. We're going to get through this thing called life together.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it is a relationship business for sure. It's a people business. It's a business about people, and caring goes a long way, right? Whether that's for clients or even agents that may be on your team, people that you manage, employ, what have you, right? Um,
100%.
your first 10 years, you kind of went through that, and then from there, you made a move. What prompted you to kind of make a move at that time?
Sure.
Maybe what was going on in your life or business?
My first 10 years I spent at Remax, a great firm, big franchise. Everyone knows it. And I really enjoyed it. And I was getting kind of bogged down with a couple of fees and some things, some marketing and advertising fees. I mean, think about this. I paid Remax for a decade, $85 a month for 10 years for marketing and advertising. I just didn't know if that marketing or advertising was helping me. I'm sure it was helping Remax globally. I'm not sure it was helping Nick, though. So I was talking to my brokers and I said, what can we do about this? Blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, that comes down from corporate. I just didn't love that answer, let's say. And so I said, okay. And I wanted to look for something else. And I really got recruited, which is the best term to use, to run a large team, actually the number one team in the state of Ohio. So I left Berkshire Hathaway and I left Remax to go to Berkshire Hathaway. And I didn't know what I was getting into, honest to goodness. I knew the guy who ran the team. He said, we're going to run the team together. You're going to be my chief recruiting officer. You're going to handle all the day-to-day operations. What he didn't tell me wholeheartedly was he was going through a pretty nasty divorce, unfortunately. And when I say this is a big team, at the time I joined, had 30 agents, and they were doing 300 deals a year, which is a good clip. I think about 50 million. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to be tied up in court with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I need to handle my business. Now, this guy alone would do about 20 deals a month. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, he was the lion's share of the business. So after his divorce went over and he paid me a big salary, and his divorce took about 3 months in court, I said, well, now that that's over, I'm going to move on. He said, no, you're going to stay, and I'm going to pay you more money. And really, he ended up paying me almost $250,000 a year in salary in 5 years. And that was wonderful. I appreciated that. But what I noticed at Berkshire is if the 5 years I was there, Mena, I went to 5 different people's 50 years in the industry. Now, they had spent 50 years of their life selling real estate. And I don't mean to downplay this at all, but I'm thinking to myself, none of them were 50 years old. They didn't start at zero. They were all 70, 80, or somewhere in their 90s. And I said, I would ask each one of them, I said, now, you spent 50 years. I said, why aren't you retired? And, in our business, before this business model, of course, there's no equity, there's no retirement, there's no stock, there's no revenue share. Even though the companies like Remax and Berkshire Hathaway were both publicly traded, and I was their number one agent, I didn't get any stock. I don't know, maybe you did, but they didn't give any to Nick. So that was very important to me. And I just saw this trend. And after 5 years working at Berkshire and running their number one team, I took it from 30 agents and 300 transactions to 60 agents and 600 transactions, and we were doing over 150 million a year. And I was very proud of that. We were the number 2 team in the world out of 50,000 agents worldwide. Very happy, very proud. And of course, my partner was too, because his name was on the door. I was kind of behind the scenes, but everyone knew who I was. And I just said, I don't think this is for me anymore. And I really was having a moment where maybe a midlife crisis about 4 years ago. I said, I don't know if I don't want to run a team. I know that. And I don't know if I want to stay with this brokerage. I really want to help agents and get them to a place that they can retire. I was very fortunate. I had some rental properties and made some good financial choices. I was fine financially, but I looked at people that were single moms or single dads with kids and struggling, and real estate's a great vehicle to make money. But if you're, you could, no one could retire. And that's when I think the rubber hit the road 4 years ago now, almost to the day. And I just decided I was going to do something different. And and join this cloud-based business in Ohio that no one ever really at that time, no one ever heard of. And we were one third of the size of the brokerage I was going to.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, and I definitely have some questions to guide us along to where you went next and why. But let me ask, from the outside looking in, right? Someone like yourself running a very successful team, 600 plus transactions. You would look at someone like that and say, this person is never going to move, right? This person is happy where they are, right? They're doing very well. Why would that person even think about going somewhere else, right? Um,
100%.
and people in that position, they might think that to themselves. I'm doing really good. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Why would I even entertain the idea? So, thought your perspective on that.
Well, was, and my first 15 years in the industry, I think I was highly successful. I got a whole bunch of plaques with my name on it from Remax and Berkshire Hathaway, and all those things are great. But when I look back at them, I'm like, well, is this getting me where I want to go? I don't want to work for 50 years. I saw these agents working for 50 years and not being able to retire, and that didn't sit well. I knew if I was a teacher or a police officer or a fireman or whatever it was, I could spend 20 years in an industry and retire with a pension and a 401k and profit share. And the real estate market at that time, 2020, didn't really have that, or at least I hadn't found it. And so that really led me to kind of a quest to find something that I said, well, I want something where Nick can actually retire and also help people retire without taking money out of their pockets, which is a very unique concept, as you know, but most agents don't worldwide. And so when I left Berkshire, I was on very good terms. And of course, the broker still calls me up and wishes me happy birthdays and anniversaries and all those kind of things. And, but I really wanted to give back. Yes, I wanted to retire. So it was done on my personal preference, but I also wanted to give back to this industry and help people. And I didn't have the vehicle. And then Al Stasek, who's my sponsor, as you know, he sat me down and you'll laugh. Yeah, everyone knows Al. And you'll laugh because he sat me down in December or January, late December, early January of 2020. This is 2-3 months before COVID. And he said, hey, I just want to, show you what I'm doing. We sat outside in Cleveland, a lot of snow in Cleveland, just so you know, and in December and January. And we sat outside at a Top Golf and we sat there for 4 hours talking. And he showed me what he was doing and how successful he was. And I said, Al, if this really works and you get this stock and you get this revenue, I really want to join a board. So January 10th, which is a very important date. January 10th is my middle child's birthday. And he was 20 years old in the year 2020. He's now 24 and he's going to become a doctor. And I'm very, very proud of that. All my 3 kids. But anyway, and I said, Nicholas, if this works, I hope I make more money than you one day, even though I know you're going to become a doctor. And he laughed. And that's been 4 years ago now. I'm just starting my 4th year at EXP. And it really was, as you know, it's life-changing. And not only is it life-changing for me, it's life-changing for the 35 agents that I brought to this company that I could mentor and help in their real estate career. And I don't have to I get paid from the company, but I don't get paid off of theirs. They get the same, as you know, the same split that I do with the company and get to 100% and icon and revenue share and things like that. And of course, the stock. And I just thought, I'm going to give this a try. And again, back in January of 2020, we had 20,000 agents in our company worldwide, 20,000. And today we have over 90,000, as you know, and no company has grown faster in a short amount of time. And it's just a real testament to our founders, Glenn Sanford and the other people running this company. What a wonderful place. It's the only agent-centric brokerage where people can actually retire in real estate. And that's what Glenn was trying to and did. That's what he tried to found.
Yeah, I mean, I love that aspect about it. Definitely, being able to retire, the aspect of being able to help others, while there's still also a financial incentive from the company itself, and a ton of other things. I think it fills in a lot of gaps, solves a lot of problems for teams and brokerages out there, right? So aside from the things you already mentioned, after coming on board, what else kind of jumped out at you, or what are some of the great reasons why you're still here?
Sure. Well, absolutely. Well, obviously the stock and the revenue share are the reasons I stay, and the 35 people that I brought on board. But you could probably see in my background, you see where it says ROI, which stands for Real Estate Outside and In Expert Advisors. So these two guys, the founders of this company, ROI, two guys from Texas, called me up and said, "Hey, we found you on LinkedIn. Would you like to run a networking group?" And I said no about 17 times. I couldn't say no more. I've never been in a BNI, never been in a networking group. I just didn't want to. I wouldn't want to be bothered. I certainly didn't want to run the group. And they said, "Well, good news. We want you to be in, and we want you to run it." And I'm like, "Oh, you guys are not listening." They like myself, we're not taking no for an answer. And they said, "Nick, just try it for a year. It won't cost you anything. I think you'll be highly successful." Well, they were 100% right. Matter of fact, more than 100%. It's unbelievable. So 2 years ago, I started 1 year ago. I'm starting my second year now. I started with these ROI expert advisors, where the real estate agent is the focal point of the group, knowing that agents like ourselves, and you and I, and the people watching this podcast, hopefully, we give away on every deal. We have a lender, we have title, we have inspections, we have, there's 10 other things, insurance. We have so many things where we're giving referrals. And so these guys figured out if we've got a group of like-minded people, between 15 and 30 people in a room once a week, just like a normal networking group, and don't make it very structured. I know that some others are very, very structured, where if you don't miss a day, you're out or something. Now, ours is not very structured, and the agent gets to run it the way he or she feels fit, that this will be really successful. Well, long story short, last year, my first year doing this, our group passed over 300 referrals. And out of that, in a time when listings were down worldwide, and especially where I live and you live, I had 17 listing referrals from this group, listing referrals, which is unheard of. And again, in the 2022 market or 2023 market, which was pretty bleak for listing. Anyway, it's really been, and again, it's one thing where I've learned the older I get, I shouldn't say no right away. I should probably look at some things and say, maybe I should give this a chance. And I did, and it's been very, very helpful. And obviously, EXP does a great job of keeping their agents very, very happy. But I'm so glad I joined this stuff, and now I've helped start groups all over the country.
Awesome. Who's the audience for ROI expert advisor? Is it just agents, or is it also those other services as well?
Yeah, there's any small business owner is good. I mean, we have on our group, we have a roofer, we have a plumber, we have an electrician, we have an insurance agent, we have my personal photographer for real estate. Her business has grown 400% from being in this group for 1 year. 400. Think about yours and my business. If it grew 400% in a year, Mena, I mean, that is unbelievable. So I will tell you, for young business owner, not young, any business owners that do this, people that just anything that relates to real estate. That's why it's called ROI, real estate outside and in. And outside and in means outside and inside the home. That's actually what it stands for, which is kind of unique. So anyway, It's a really cool thing. Again, any small business owner can do it. Or if you're an employee, if you're a plumber, if you're, whatever you do, you're going to work with small business, and you want to give before you get. That's the thing. I handpicked the first 5 people in my group, and we always knew we were going to give more referrals than we got. And now it's coming back to us, threefold, if not more.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing. As we wrap it up, I want to ask you a few questions. Some of them may get a little personal here, but you had a great success in your real estate. God bless your children, right? Made some good financial choices along the way. What are you most proud of? If you were to sit back overall, what is that for you?
Sure. For me, it's always my why. Why do I do this? I do this for my wife, for kids, three beautiful children, a beautiful wife, being remarried, as some people are, because a lot of the divorce rate's high in this country and around the world. We have a blended family, and these 3 beautiful children. I had my daughter, talk about being personal. I'll get more personal than you want to know. I had my daughter when I was 23 years old. I hadn't even graduated from college yet. I was 2 weeks away from graduating. She was born April 16th, and I didn't graduate till Mother's Day, about a month later in May, down in Alabama. And I was dating a girl. I was going to school in Alabama, dating a girl from New York. So you know how that works. So anyway, but I'm so proud of my 3 children. Fiona's 27, and she's a teacher in Maine. And Nicholas is 24, and he's going to go to medical school in the fall. And Brady, Cindy, and our 15-year-old, almost 16. I have to go buy another car this week because he's going to be 16 next month. And I'm so proud of all of them. They're different people, but that's my why. I mean, that's why I do this. I mean, I think, family is the most important to me. Growing up, I had, three siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, and my parents, obviously. And I just think that family, and that's why I work so hard to do this and to give back. And it's important. And family is really, really important to me.
That's a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing. I'm gonna ask you about financial choices before we get a few rapid fire advice to Asians. You said you made some good financial choices along the way. What would you say are some of the top maybe financial choices, especially for real estate agents, who are trying to make better financial choices?
100%. Well, you got to own real estate. You'd be surprised if you don't know this. About 30 to 45% of all realtors actually don't even own homes.
Yep.
That's like going to a car dealership and trying to buy a car from someone who rode a bike to work, right? I mean, I don't mean that in any bad way because we all fall on hard times. So when I got in this industry, I said, well, if I'm going to be in real estate, hey, I got to own real estate. And I owned a house or two before then, but I never sold. I'm trying to play, real life Monopoly without selling. I now own 3 homes and investment properties of mine, and I've never had to sell one yet. I certainly can and make money, a financial gain, but owning real estate, being a landlord, being a property owner, I think it's the number one way to wealth for anybody, clients, agents, but for real estate agents, if you don't own a home, own one, and then start with a rental property. It doesn't have to be a flip. You can own it long term. It can be an Airbnb. There's so many choices that I didn't have 20 years ago. We didn't have these choices, but now we do. And I will tell you, if you're not a homeowner in real estate and you're not a landlord in real estate, then you're not in real estate. You're not practicing real estate, and that's our profession. I can't go to someone and have them sit down and say, "I'm going to sell you $1 million home," and they say, "Well, where do you live?" Well, I rent. Well, what do you know about owning a home? How do you? That makes zero sense. So own the real estate. All those realtors out there, start buying investment property. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be nice. We're going to put lipstick on a pig, but own the real estate.
Yeah, that's key. You mentioned only a third, no, 2/3, right, own a home.
Right.
So 1/3 does not. Here's another stat also. Only 1/3 of realtors have a second property other than their primary residence. So really only a third are in the investment game side of real estate, right? Cool. So a few rapid fire questions here. One advice for brand new agents.
You can't be outworked. If you're not in the office before anyone, if you go to an office, or if you're not the last person to leave an office, whatever it is, always make one more call, do one more thing. Someone's competing with you to get that listing, get that lead. So work ethic, number one, don't be outworked.
Love it. How about for seasoned agents who are in a good place, but there's always room for improvements? What do you suggest to them?
Give back. There's a lot of great seasoned agents, and you got to give back. I don't care if it's on a panel. I don't care if you do a CE class, whatever it is. Go to the new agents and give them hope and help them. A lot of times in my first 2 brokerages, as you know, people kept things close to the chest. I didn't want to tell who my photographer was, who my video, because then someone would know and they'd use him or her. Blah, blah. No, right. Give all your secrets away. I think a great example is Tesla. Tesla owns no patents. They give all their technology away. Anyone can copy what they do, and I think that's very unique. Anyway, give all your secrets away. Help the younger people, those seasoned agents like myself. After 20 years, I want to give back more than I get now. I've gotten a lot from this industry. I need to give back more.
That's awesome. If you were standing on stage this afternoon and delivering a big keynote to a lot of realtors, what would your one big message be?
Mine's easy. Love people. You got to love people. You got to love people if they're having a good day, if they're having a bad day. You don't know what it's like in their shoes. You don't know what they're going through. And there's a lot of stress. This industry, we're not real estate agents. We're in the people business, and people are messy, and people get divorced, and people have unruly kids, and people have this, and people have that. And you don't know what their life is. So just love them for where they're at that time. And I promise you, people always say, Nick, you're the most positive, energetic, upbeat agent I've ever met. Great. I should be. We all should be, because I don't know where someone's at in their life. But if I can be a positive influence on someone's life when they're having a negative day, great. Then I did my job. So always be positive.
I love this. So, Nick, thank you so much, man. I really admire your character. I know you a little bit before our recording today, but what you shared with me, really admire a lot of stuff, how loving and caring you are and helpful and want to give back, and your hard work ethic, very inspiring. Hopefully inspiring for a lot of people out there. I was taking some notes myself as you were going. I'm gonna look over my notes again and obviously try to apply this to my life. Hopefully, everybody does too. But thank you once again, Nick. Really do appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Anytime.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Take care.